How's it going, friends? Reckless Yuki here. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Thank you guys very much for checking out the video. I do greatly appreciate it. In this video, we're going to be doing a product review of this, which is the bloody A70 optical gaming mouse. And before we get into the review, I want to make the disclaimer that I did not pay for this. This was sent to me over for review by the fine folks over at Bloody. So thank you very much. I do greatly appreciate it. And now let's get into the review. Now taking a closer look at the bloody A70 optical FPS gaming mouse. The sensor of this mouse is an Avago 3050, which is an older optical sensor. And a lot of mice nowadays use a Pixar 3310, at least a lot of the higher end FPS gaming mouse, and I wish they would have used that for this mouse specifically because I feel that that is a better sensor. The DPI of the mouse can go up to 4000, which is enough for any FPS gamer on the PC. The polling rate of this mouse can go from 125 to 1000 hertz, which is really nice. The switches are what are known as infrared micro switches, so it's something different from an Omron switch, which a lot of the other major mice manufacturers use. And as far as clicking it and the feel of it, it feels just fine. I'm able to push it and I can get the tactile feedback that I'm actually pressing it. It's a perfect responsiveness for me. And as far as the weight of the mouse, we'll use my scale and show you guys on camera the weight of it. It's about 121 grams, so it's a decently heavy mouse for what it is, but the size of the mouse is a comfortable fit for someone like me who has large hands. But I know that there's other similar size and shaped mice who were able to do it a lot, like basically a lot lighter, like the SteelSeries Rival 300. But for the size of it, I understand that they did put some weight, but I wish they would have spent some more time in reducing the weight, especially for FPS gamers out there. The grip style in which you could use for this, I can comfortably use a palm grip, which is something I prefer. With a lot of the other mice and smaller mice, I have to use something like a claw, and I hardly ever use a fingertip. So if you have large hands, this is big enough for a full palm or claw grip. Fingertip I wouldn't really recommend with this mouse because you might want to get something smaller. The design of this is kind of like I guess maybe a little bit of an ergonomic, but it's definitely for right-handed users. It definitely has like a weird shape that I haven't really seen as far as the mice that I currently own. So it's a different shape and feel for sure. Now, as far as the construction of this mouse, the top here kind of has this little bit of a rubberized feel. And as you kind of go over these little veins that the light shines through, you can kind of feel each one of the veins as you're able to pull through or kind of just like slide your finger along. The mouse wheel is decently okay. It doesn't feel too mushy. I've had better mouses, but I also had a lot worse as far as where the mouse wheel is concerned. And the click of the mouse wheel feels fine. On the side here, we have some decent buttons, but they're a little bit mushy. Whenever I've been using this mouse and kind of pressing it, I never felt that I mispressed the button, so I think they are sufficient for the most part. On the top here, we have these little buttons that are basically able to use to switch the profiles of this mouse specifically, which I'll get more in detail as we go into the program specifically in order to control this mouse. And as far as the other side, there's not really much of anything here. And on the sides, there's this plasticky, maybe a little bit rubberized feel as far as grips with these little indentions. It kind of feels a bit cheap. Like, I don't know. I don't really like these little indentions, but I guess that's there for people to have better grip or be able to grip onto it. And then as far as anything else, they have on the bottom here these metallic mouse feet, which I don't really like. I would much rather have plastic mouse feet because I use a cloth pad. I feel that these will eventually kind of start eating into the cloth pad and kind of ruining my cloth pad. I would much rather have a plastic surface so that I won't have a fear of it. And as I kind of go along the surface, the reason why they use this is because they feel that this will be a lot faster for you to be able to whip it around a lot smoother. But it kind of feels like it scratches up the mouse surface a little bit, or the mouse pad surface. So if you continue to use this for a long time, you're probably going to start wearing out your mouse pad at a faster rate, which is something that I don't really want to do. I would much rather just have them use plastic mouse feet. And as far as the click latency of this mouse, I compared the click latency of my Final Mouse 2016 Tournament Pro, and with the infrared micro switches, this is actually a decent amount slower. The click latency of this mouse compared to my Final Mouse was 12.5 milliseconds, which isn't the worst mouse that I've had, but it's definitely far from the best. And I was expecting a lot more from this mouse because the other bloody mouse I have was actually faster than my Final Mouse, but this one for some reason was slower. So I'm not sure why that is, but it's definitely a little bit more sluggish when it comes to this mouse. And as far as the click latency representing the sensor latency, I'm not sure if there was any noticeable sensor latency, but it kind of felt a little bit sluggish as I was trying to aim on people in CSGO, where if I was using my final mouse felt a lot more responsive than the bloody mouse, the A70 here. So I think it could be that the mouse itself might be a little bit too heavy, whereas I'm trying to whip it around to aim on people, it doesn't really feel as responsive as some of the other mice that I have. Now, as far as any sort of shake, there isn't any sensor shake with this mouse. As I hold it, like if you just hold it like this and move it, the mouse wheel is going to shake left and right. So you want to hold that down as you move it, but there isn't any sensor shake with the mouse, so the construction of the internals is done decently well. So I don't think that there is any sensor shake with this mouse specifically, and there are no removable ways to make this mouse lighter or heavier. You're basically stuck with 121 grams. So that's the overview of the mouse itself. Now let's get into the program. So now taking a closer look at the Bloody program that you'll want to use in order to take full advantage of your Bloody mouse. We're greeted with this screen here, which basically you could change the cores of the mouse itself, whether it be Core 1, 2, or Ultra Core 3 and Ultra Core 4. In order to get Ultra Core 3 and 4, it might be included with the mouse you purchase, or you might have to purchase this separately, so something to be aware of when you're buying a mouse. As far as what the differences between these cores, I know that they take different controls between MMORPGs or MOBAs or even FPS games, and I myself prefer to focus on FPS games. But as far as the differences between Core 2 and Ultra Core 3, I'm not too entirely sure because this program is kind of difficult to follow along. But as far as Ultra Core 2, you basically press this and it kind of gives you those things there where depending on the button you press on the mouse, you could have different sort of burst shots or single shot. Where Ultra Core 3, I believe this is what you'll have to use in order to engage the macros or the funny things that this mouse is able to do to allow you to have some superior control when it comes to some guns in games like CSGO. But anyways, we'll move on from here. The buttons in which you could lay out will be depending on the mouse that you have hooked up. Now, as you can see on the screen, I have the AL90 hooked up to my PC for this demonstration. But whatever mouse you have will change for the mouse in which you're trying to control. And as you can see on the right, you could kind of have these things set to different buttons. And here I have my right click set to AK-47, which is what I'll be showing you a little bit later. This is kind of more following along the Oscar macro, which I'll kind of get into a little bit. Now, Ultra Guns is something that I don't really use. Basically, you press the different buttons, 1, N, or 3, in order to have different things like single shot, user-defined gun, or user-defined gun, but I didn't really mess with this setting too much. Sensitivity here, you will go into changing the report rate or polling rate as well as the DPI, and you can have different settings for you could go up to at least 5 sensitivity settings, but I only use 800, so I just have 800 here. And then as far as sensor calibration, this is something that you could do with this mouse, is you could sensor calibrate to your mouse pad. So if you just press calibration, it tells you here to press start, and then you want to hold the left button to start, and then you move in a Z, and then you let go, and then it's calibrated for your mouse pad or mouse surface. So it's pretty nice, and it does a decent job, but let's see if it works with just a desktop. So here I'm going to take away my mouse pad, and I'm going to try it again to see how well it's able to control. And it's even like tracking pretty good on the desk, so it's not sure how much better this is going to be. So holding, okay, and it still tracks pretty well. So I'm not sure if that's just because of the laser of this mouse specifically, or if it would matter if I had a different mouse. But it's something that you could do to calibrate the sensor for the surface that you were trying to game on. All right. So anyways, we could also change the pickoff distance, either if you want it really high or really low. Okay, so for this, it's kind of an interesting thing. It's like, how much of a distance do you want from the sensor to the pad in which you want it to, I guess, keep track of? And if we do that, that's basically how you change it. But if you move this too low, you're not going to be able to move your mouse. As I'm trying to move my mouse, it's just not enough range in order to pick up with the pad. So this is how you'll change liftoff distance of like how far you want it to change, or how far you want to be able to lift the mouse where it's not going to track anymore. So it's really good where you could even get it set down to where you're not going to be able to take any control of your mouse anymore. So pretty neat. And apply that, and as you apply different settings, it will show you here that all the settings will be stored on the mouse, so you don't necessarily need to use this program. And that's something good to ensure that it's really nice that there's not really much input lag, because it doesn't rely on the program to go through. Basically all the settings are saved on the mouse specifically. So anyways, moving on to guard. This is something that is more important for wireless mouse or wireless mouse users. This is something that I personally haven't used at all, because I don't have or use wireless mouse when it comes to gaming. But if you need to have some sort of, specific things when it comes to a wireless mouse, they have this here, which I won't really get into. And then they also have a battery life indicator here, which again, I won't really get into. And then some other things here as far as how you want it to look on the mouse. If you want to change how bright the lights are, you could change it here, or you could even just turn off the lights altogether, or maximum brightness. And this is something that is kind of sketchy when it comes to this mouse as far as legitimately playing competitive FPS games. If you're one of those guys who really want to play and don't really want to be considered a cheat, or, value the skill level required to control games, then this is something that's definitely not for you. But if you want to use this, you can. And because this is a review, I'll go over this. You can select basically a way to control the mouse so that you can automatically control the recoil of specific guns. And as I'll show you, I'll open up the recoil for an AK-47 in CSGO that I have set up. So if I open this, you'll see that after you press the button for firing, after you press the button for the macro set, it will left click, and then it will delay 98 milliseconds, and then it will move it versus like the X and Y axis to this amount, and it will hit again, delay, and then it'll move it this amount, and it'll keep doing that to try to follow along with the recoil of a gun specifically, to ensure that you're able to control the recoil so it's not going to spread all over the place, so that when you hold the mouse down and spray, it's going to be a lot more collective than an actual like really wide spray pattern. And you just have to go through and mess around with this. It's a very complicated program. It's not very easy to get into from the get-go, and I won't get into it that much, but it's just, you have to start messing around with these buttons in order to generate what looks like here. And it was pretty hard for me to even follow along and try to get this set up. And then as we go to headshots, I haven't really messed with this very much. I don't really understand what this is for, how useful this is. And then the about me. So that's the program in which comes with the bloody mouse. And it's the program that you want to use in order to take full advantage of the mouse that you're using. So now moving on, we're in a game of CSGO, and we're in a workshop, the Recoil Master weapon practice area, and I'm going to show you guys how well this mouse is able to automatically control the recoil of a gun like the AK-47. So I'm going to hold down the left click and show you guys the normal bullet pattern and spray you could expect. All right. So that's basically the spray of how it would normally go. And then I'm going to show you guys how different it will be if you use the automatic control of the automatic recoil control of the mouse. So I'm doing that now. So as you can see, that is the difference, as the spray is mainly controlled up here, and then the stock spray is up there. So this is how much of a difference it can provide, that they don't really change the recoil of the gun for you. And this is with the recoil control that I showed you in the actual program itself, and this is the results in which it's able to get. So now moving on to the last portion of the video, where I'm going to put my final thoughts and conclusions on the bloody A70 and whether or not I think it's a very good FPS gaming mouse. And as far as the pros and cons, there's not too many pros that overtake the cons of the mouse, at least for my specific tastes. When it comes to the pros of the mouse, I like the looks of the mouse. It's definitely a cool look with the kind of the blood and the bloody hand in the veins and the colorful LEDs, but it's not an RGB. And as far as the sensor, the only positive thing I can say about the sensor is that it's an optical sensor, but I wish they would have used a different optical sensor. I wish they would have used a Pixart 3310 or maybe a Pixar 3360. Those are the sensors that I prefer. I wish they would have used the Pixar 3366, but that's specific to Logitech, and no one but Logitech can currently use that sensor. So a Pixar 3310 or Pixar 3360 would have been a more ideal situation. The weight of this mouse is a little bit too heavy for me to really fall in love with. The feet of the mouse, I wish they would have used the polyurethane. I don't really like these metal feet because I feel that it scratches up the surface of my mouse pad. The braiding on the cable I wish would have gone away. And like the main thing is like the gimmicky programs that come with this mouse. Now, a lot of people will buy this mouse because they really like the programs of which it comes with in order to take control of the macros, and even that kick reduction or that kick control where you could set up your own perfect macro to specific guns and games like CSGO so that it will eliminate the kick. And I think that's something that they should kind of step away from in order to be basically to be reserved as a quality mouse manufacturer. I think maybe you should step away from that and kind of just focus on the mouse's firmware. Don't really necessarily have a program, but just kind of have everything on the mouse itself to ensure that it is as fast as possible. And also with the infrared switches of this mouse, I wasn't sure why, but these infrared switches were a lot slower than the optical micro switches that came in a different mouse, which was the AL90. So this mouse itself was significantly slower than the other mouse for Bloody. So I'm not sure why that is, but it was proven as I was using the tests, and the switches are it's just not as fast as the other mice available. And as far as moving around, I'm not sure if it's due to the weight of the mouse, or it could be that the sensor might be a little bit delayed too, but it definitely doesn't feel as sharp and as responsive as the other mice that I've used. So anyways, overall, it's a mouse that I'm not really too much of a fan with. It's definitely not going to overtake my Final Mouse 2016 Tournament Pro as my FPS go-to mouse. But I mean, it is a quality mouse, but I think there are just better mice out there. But anyways, thank you guys very much for watching the review. Hopefully this was useful to you, especially if you're looking into this mouse for possible purchase. And I'll talk to you guys again in the next video, all right?